When your legs don't work like they used to before, and I can't sweep you off of your feet, will your mouth still remember the taste of my love? Will your eyes still smile from your cheek?
It's Jahf Rich.
Darling, I will be loving you.
Coming to you live and alive
till we're 70.
from the city of Jahf Rich.
And baby, my
It's the show called Open Minded,
could still fall less
Not Blinded.
hard at 23.
Get excited.
And I'm thinking about how people fall in love in mysterious ways. Maybe just the touch of a hand. Well, me, I fall in love with you every single day. And I just wanna tell you I am. So honey, now
It's Jahf Rich coming to you live and alive from the city of Jahf Rich.
kiss me.
It's the show called Open Minded, Not Blinded. And today we have a very special guest as we get into a very important topic
Thinking now,
called
maybe
Major Turn Offs.
right where we are.
Alright, so let's get ready to dive into it right here. So, we have with us today, the episode is sponsored by Intellectual Movers. You can Google them, call them, find them on Facebook or Instagram. They are at Intellectual Movers. Okay, so we have a very special guest with us today. Her name is called Holly. So, Holly, please introduce yourself to the listeners in the city of Jahf Rich.
Hi, it's Holly. I'm just here giving my opinion.
Yes, Holly, thank you so much for joining us today. We do appreciate you. And the topic is called Major Turnoff. So, what is a major turnoff? I can answer that. A person or thing that causes someone to feel bored, disgusted, or sexually repelled. So, a major turnoff is a person or thing that causes a human being to feel bored, disgusted, or sexually repelled. Holly, with that being said, do you have any major turnoffs when it comes to
I do.
romantic relationships?
I do. I have, so my two major turn-offs would have to be, one, sleeping all day long, definitely. That is more of definitely a turn-off. And chewing with your mouth open, that's quite disgusting to me, no matter if you're my man or anyone else's, or just a stranger.
So you have two major turn-offs in a romantic relationship.
Two major, yes.
Yeah. So what is it about sleeping all day that turns you off? What do you think it is?
I think it's the fact that it's the lack of maybe not lack of personality per se, maybe lack of motivation. And I think that even if you were to sleep 12 hours and get up at 6 p.m. and try to act motivated, it still wouldn't work for me. It would be like too late, you know? I think it's unattractive to be lazy, whether you're my man or you're just a friend. It doesn't matter.
So sleeping out the day basically is a turn off because you feel like that person is less productive or sometimes non-productive because they slept through most of the day.
You know, I do feel like that, but I feel like everybody has the potential to do so many great things. In the law of attraction, I believe in it, and I feel like you're not really exercising anything that you're capable of doing by laying there, and I am not one to mother my boyfriend or mother a friend. Like, if it was my kid, I would be on top of it, but if it's my partner or a friend or a boyfriend, that's their own problem, and I cannot bring myself down to help them find themselves.
Definitely. So that makes sense to me. I think a lot of people are probably going to be in agreement with you. All the listeners here in the city of Jahf Rich and everyone else that's an extension of those listeners. So everyone within the sound of our voice. So you also mentioned chewing with your mouth open. Now, are those two associated with each other, like sleeping all day, but then while you're sleeping, you
No. So the sleeping all day is more on a personal level. That's when you think you know someone, you find out you don't know someone. The chewing in public, that happens everywhere I go. That happens if it's a date or if it's someone at the table next to me. I think it's just absolutely rude and it kind of just, you know, it's gross. And you cannot think someone's attractive when they're chewing like a camel.
So you talked about chewing, but with your mouth open, but you spoke specifically to in public. What about in a private? What if the person is in a private setting with you, in a romantic setting, but
if they're in a private space, then I don't even know how they got into my private space without me knowing that. But I mean, I guess no, seriously, but I think it would be a lot more comfortable to come to someone and say, hey, this is kind of like gross in a weird way. I would even be joking about it and like laugh it off if you were private. But when you're out in public, you should be way more aware of what's going on around you. And it just goes to show someone that their general character is lacking of observation if you don't know what's going on around you. You know, if you don't know the person next to you can tell that you're chewing with your mouth open, then you're lacking in a lot of other areas as well.
Oh my God, that's deep. I feel like we can spend 30 minutes just picking apart some of what you said there and really touching on it and breaking it down, because this show is all about...
Yeah, it's a sign.
It's all about education, inspiration, and motivation. And you touched on some really in-depth things there, because you talked about you feel like you really don't know much about the person if you can't tell that they behave like that in public, right? Or in private.
Right. You should know what's going on around you and see...
Definitely.
Be aware of the people around you and if they're looking at you or how you're making them feel, or if you don't know you're pissing someone off, then shit's gonna hit the fan pretty quick, right?
All right, I can relate to some of what you're saying for sure. So,
right. Okay.
Do you think there's any specific way? And the reason I'm asking is because you just mentioned you have to know the people in your settings, right? However, do you think there's any specific way to address major turnoffs in public?
Yes, I do. I think that being classy about it is the first one, because if you go all hood on someone and they're already being gross, you're not much better than them. So try to approach them classy. I also think, though, that when they get insulted and if they get defensive, I would just walk away. I mean, it's I think a look goes a long way. I've been in a restaurant where I've seen like big dudes eating a lot, like mountains of plates on their, like lots of food, and they chew really loud. And I'm pretty sure if they just look around and you can give them that look, they should be able to pick up on it. If you really have to go approach the table, then they're obviously not not very good at conversing, maybe, and I think it's a red flag. It's not going to go well. So I would just be prepared for an argument. I mean, I personally have approached like at a family dinner, extended family, and said like it's kind of gross. And usually I'm laughing when I say it, and it turns into a joke. But I think if you insult someone and you're going over to intentionally to insult somebody, to expect an argument, right?
Oh my gosh! So you just said that sometimes with a look you can send a message, but for the people that are listening to you in this interview and they don't know what you look like, they may start getting an image and an idea because you said with a look. So how can you define or explain a little bit more about that type of look that you would give that somebody would get the message?
So I mean, more of a shocked/disgusted look. I wouldn't go with the rude, trying to like beef you look. I'm talking like almost like repulsed, like, oh, that's kind of gross. I didn't expect that. Then, hey, you're nasty. Let's take it outside. Like, there's a difference. Like,
let's take it outside.
I'm just saying, there's a difference in how you look at someone.
Let's take it outside. That just reminded me of that young lady, that famous words recently talk about catch me outside. That just kind of brought me back there. That's all I was
laughing. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay, so you're saying in public there is some ways you can address it, and sometimes it can lead to a response or reaction that you may not be ready for or may not have anticipated.
Right, exactly. I mean, you don't want to just go walking around being like, I'm right, so I can disrespect anybody, right? People are going to get defensive, and they're not going to want to be embarrassed, and they're going to stick up for themselves. So it's just common sense that you got to expect the more you insult someone, the more they're going to retaliate, I would assume. So I would not try to be rude when I said something, but I definitely feel like letting them get away with chewing like a camel is definitely wrong. Like, they're never going to stop, so you just got to try something.
Wow. So
that's my biggest turnoff, and I feel strong about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell. And nothing's wrong with that. I think that it's important to have these conversations, right? That's why we do this show called Open Minded, Not Blinded. Because there's a lot of people that feel the same way you feel, and they're not probably brave enough to really know how, or they probably don't even know how to address these things. And that's why it's important that we have the discussion right now, because you could be empowering a lot of people, not necessarily specific genders, but sometimes women don't really know how to approach these things, right? So I think,
you know what? If it's like, for example, you can also compliment someone and insult them at the same time. I mean, like, you can also say, like, I'm serious, like, if it's someone that you're attracted to that's chewing like a camel, I would suggest going over to them and saying something like, you know, you would look so much sexier if you chew with your mouth closed. Like, there's ways to confuse, there's ways to throw them off, but it doesn't have to be angry or defensive or rude. I just think that people need to know what they're doing, or you're kind of helping them look stupid, you know?
That's a very valid point you just mentioned there. So
right.
with that being said, we address some of those for public. Major turn off in private, how would you address these? Because now you basically have the whole setting.
Okay, so in private, I would use personal, like, life experiences or personal examples as a reference. I probably wouldn't do that if I was in public, is use personal background information on someone. But, like, if you're trying to get a point through in your home, I would be more like something like, you've done this like 10 times before all year and it's kind of annoying, or you wouldn't say that in public, you know, like the history there, you wouldn't bring up air your dirty laundry in public, but you might be able to get away with it in your own home.
So definitely, so you would address it differently in private than
it would
public.
be much more detailed in private, much more detailed.
So that's what I was trying to get at. So you would go into more details, so you probably would give them like a sermon, a lecture, like
a couple curse words, all that, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah? Okay, I mean...
For sure, definitely.
So, but because at this point, if you have to address it in private, it means like what? You're really annoyed.
It means it's too late, is what it means. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But it's going to be a little bit more intense, I think.
I'm super annoyed. I'm going to let you know that I'm really, really, really disgusted. I'm repelled.
Yeah, you know, like I just made the dinner for you in my own kitchen with my own groceries, and now I can see it in your house, like you know, like it's different if it's someone else's food and it's someone else's kitchen, like.
Oh, okay, so you're saying as long as it's your food and you can see it in your mouth, you have Then
I'm mad, yo. Then I'm cheesed, and I'm like, what the hell?
With that being said, what are some major turn-offs from strangers? Because you just talked about how mad you're going to be in private. Usually a private setting would be with somebody that you have some sort of intimate relationship with. So, whether it's a major turn-off from a stranger, what are some major turn-off from strangers?
From strangers?
Yeah.
For one, I would say, okay, for example, I just got out of a long relationship and we used to have a car. Now I've been used to riding the bus for the past 3 weeks, and I've seen a lot of people, for pregnant ladies, get on the bus, no one stands up for them. I mean, that's a stranger thing or mothers yelling at their kids in public. That shit pisses me off. Like when you're in the mall and like there's a mom and she's like 10 feet away from her kid, that will bother me. Those are the pet peeves in public, another 2 pet peeves that piss me off.
Wow, that's... I think you just mentioned too that I think a lot of people can relate to and feel strongly about also, right? Because even me myself, I know the one you talked about mothers yelling at their kids in public, especially because you know I seen this recently too, and I don't want to really go into the story because this is your time and it's your interview, but that I can see that one being a really huge one that people will definitely be discussing, and we may be even getting some emails and phone calls for you in particular. People may be wanting to know more about that, right?
Right, and I have a lot more to say, don't worry.
With that being said, how do you address major turn-off by strangers? You just talked about the mom yelling at the kid that's 10 feet away.
So how do I address it? You're right. So that situation, for example, first of all, if the mother's already yelling at her kid in public, I'm not trying to start a fight in front of the child. So I probably wouldn't approach it right away. But I would say, like, I don't know. It depends. It depends. I mean, I think every situation's different. And if it is, like, someone who you think might be drinking while they're yelling at their kid, I would definitely approach it. But if it's just someone who looks like they had a bad day, I wouldn't really, like, I mean, you need to know what you're walking into, I guess. I just feel like, when it comes, like, for example, I seen a kid like 10, maybe 5-6 feet away from the mom, and she was yelling. I could have easily scooped this kid up and like taught her a lesson, but I'm not like that. So like I was just like, maybe it's better I just look at her like in a weird way because I have children, right? So I think that when most parents, I don't know, I think they'd be, especially in that situation, girls especially would be super offended if another woman came up and said something about parenting their child. Although I feel like even if they did argue back with me, it would be advice that they would take eventually. They just are too defensive to agree with me at the moment.
Yeah, and of course they're in a public setting too, so they'd probably feel embarrassed or something like that.
Right. Yeah, so they're not going to agree with me, guaranteed, but I guarantee you they will think about it later.
That's for sure, and I love something that you said that I really want to touch on. You talked about the fact, using the specific example of a mom yelling, or probably even a dad yelling at his kid in public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or both parents yelling at the kid in public. You thinking about the way you approach the parent, because you mentioned you don't want to start a fight in front of the kid, and I think that's really important to highlight.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of hot-headedness going around. People just don't care. But I mean, I think, like, the thing is like, the kid that I'm talking about in this situation was only, like, 5, so the kid wouldn't understand had we argued. If a child was about teen, like 11, 12, 13, I think they might need someone to intervene, or they might just end up just like their parents. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it depends the age.
That's so true, and I hope that when the kid gets to 11 to 13, their mom definitely won't be yelling at them in public. I mean, that's definitely a self-esteem.
I've seen it happen. This is Hamilton many times.
Really? Yeah, but that's not good. I mean, that's not
Lots
healthy.
of times.
We did an episode recently talking about people with low self-esteem and everything, and I think that's definitely a contributing factor to low self-esteem. You definitely don't want to feel embarrassed or belittled in public, especially by somebody that you love.
And if you're more confident, and if you're confident and you're sure of yourself, then when you take criticism, you won't take it the wrong way. But if you already have problems with your self-esteem, you're definitely going to get defensive, and you're probably going to just miss the whole point of it and argue back, right?
Yeah, so wow, I mean, I'm so happy that you're touching on some very important aspects of these things. Turn off, major turn off, and it can lead to so many different things in life in a negative aspect, as you just mentioned. So I think that in a later episode or on another episode, we will definitely have to go into some of these, because I think I really want to hear more about your mindset surrounding or regarding these things.
Right. And I have a lot to say, so go for it.
Right. So brings us to the next question here. People are usually scared to say anything about major turnoffs. Why do you think that is?
I think, first of all, the first reason would be, how do you approach someone without them yelling back at you to mind your business? Because the most common answer is, it's none of your business, clearly. But it's so much more than that. So, like, I think to expect someone to think it's none of your business and to already be prepared for that is going to get you a lot further than to just go in blindsided and try to give someone advice, not knowing. Like you have to think about their responses before you go in and try to help somebody, because not everyone is ready to take criticism. Like, some people are, really depressed, and they might think you're picking on them and whatnot, right? So they're going to be embarrassed to tell you anything, and especially if they agree with you. But if you're confident, then you should be able to say, that's awesome advice, thank you. You know, like, I think it depends on who you're dealing with. It's about, like, paying attention to who you're talking to. Like, not the same advice is not going to work for everyone in the same words. You're going to have to change your words around for every person, probably.
Wow, that's deep. So there's two things you said that I really paid attention to and I love. You said, basically, different strokes for different folks.
Right, exactly. Same point. The same point, same message, but different approach every time.
And realistically, that also speaks to assessing, which I think you mentioned. You did mention it. So basically, you're assessing the person in the situation before you think about your approach to that person.
Exactly. You can't go in there with one rule in one sentence and it applies to everybody. You gotta know who you're talking to. Well, as best you can, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important because why it's so important is that sometimes we understand this is a turn off, this is annoying me, it's irritable, I can't stand this person anymore, I hate the fact that they keep doing that. But guess what? At the end of the day, let me think about how I'm going to approach a person as opposed to how I feel about the situation.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's important.
You really gotta, like, I think with people who are broken, you gotta really compliment them, or you gotta like help them. You gotta make them feel good before they feel bad. Otherwise, they're just gonna feel bad and get defensive. You gotta.
Deep. That's
yeah,
deep.
definitely.
That's
I think
deep.
that's very important.
That's
you gotta
like that.
help them feel good before you teach them something. Otherwise, you're just putting them down, right?
In social work, we have something where we talk about the sandwich, right? So we start off with something good. So we start off with a compliment, like you mentioned. We start off with a compliment, and then we say the constructive criticism. So this is the critique here now. Okay, so I didn't like you said this. I didn't like how you said that. And then we ended off with something positive also. So maybe another compliment. Now, with this being said, how would you, let's use the example of the mom yelling at her kid in public. How would you approach that in a sandwich aspect, like something starting off with a compliment?
Okay. So what I think if I were to approach someone, I would say, you can tell your son is absolutely adores you, and he is so searching for you. And if I was you, I would just kind of hold him a little closer because he looks like he really loves you and is going to freak out if he ends up holding the hand of a stranger or something like that. Something along the lines of try to get them to the point to hold his hand, maybe kind of keep him closer to you than where someone can walk in and out of your pathway type of thing. Maybe start off with I think maybe trying to observe the fact that they're a good mother at some point, because you're pretty much giving them some sort of bad mother, like they're doing something wrong as a mother, they're going to feel defensive for sure. So I would start off with that you can see the love between the two, or your son really looks like he loves you, or your son looks just like you, or he's so cute, he has your eyes, but you should keep him a little closer because his eyes are so cute, someone might grab him, something like that.
Wow.
Something where you're just you get into their head, but you don't make them mad at you.
I love that. I love the example. I love the way how I asked you that on the spot, and you were spot on, and I'm in total agreement with everything you just said, and some of it I wouldn't even have thought of in the split of a second like you just did. So that's perfect. I think a lot of people, the listeners in the city of Jahf are definitely excited to hear this episode, definitely excited to get your feedback, definitely excited to have your viewpoint. And if you're just joining us, I want you to understand that the topic today is called Major Turn Offs, and we have a special guest here with us, Holly, and she's giving us some wonderful feedback and ideas of how to address and opinions affiliated with major turn off. So with that being said, we come to the next question. Holly, have you ever had anyone react negatively to your comments about major turn-offs?
Yes, I have. I've definitely had somebody act negatively towards my comments. My mother. My mother has not been very happy. For example, how do I put this? So when I try to tell her it'd be for a better grandmother move to come over and to not drink out of alcohol bottles, because I don't drink very much, so I prefer you put your alcohol in a glass at parties. It's been more of am I an alcoholic, or I'm just making fun of her? So I've had to literally reform how I give my mother advice, and it didn't go well, because I think what happened was she thinks it's just embarrassment. When you embarrass somebody, it's going to take a lot longer for them to retrain how they expect you to put your perspective, I guess. My mom knows where I was coming from, but she was just focused on me embarrassing her, and where that's going to take at least an extra day or two to get over. And so I expect bad criticism. I don't expect it to go well all the time, regardless. I think that you should expect bad feedback if you're trying to help somebody, because they might think about it later, but nobody agrees with you right away. It takes time. You got to expect them to take time.
And it's important that you acknowledge that too. I think that's where listeners can actually see now or hear now the growth or the transition in the way you approach people now, because you had the experience and you recognize that it didn't go in the way that you probably wanted it or foreseen the outcome. So no, I think it's really important that you mentioned that. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, no problem.
What major turn off can you live with? Because you just mentioned your mom in the beginning of the episode. You also mentioned your significant other, if you can call him that. You said something about being without a car for like 3 weeks. What major turn off could you live with?
I can live with, okay. My other minor, I'm not going to say, it is kind of major if it adds up. It's only major when it starts getting consistent. Then it's major. If it's not consistent, it's not so bad. But like, for example, the one I can live with is when I clean my house, because I don't expect my man to clean for me if he works. I don't mind that rule, except do not cook in the middle of the night. So when I'm done cooking, and I do my dishes and my kitchen's clean, I wake up and my kitchen should be clean. So when I wake up and I see food and like stuff cut up and like the oven's on and dishes, like you're cooking all night long, that shit is annoying. I can handle it once a week. If it started getting where 3 times a week I wake up and you're cooking all night long and I'm sleeping and I have to do all the dishes, that shit pisses me off. So like I don't know, I think it's not a problem until it becomes consistent. If there's like minor things, that's kind of cute, you can live with it. But if it starts adding up, you just like, it becomes stressful. So
basically, I heard cooking in the middle of the night and there's dishes all over the kitchen, that annoys you.
Yeah,
so
that pisses me off so bad.
Are you saying that is because the question that's coming now is, the question was, what major turn off could you live with?
I can live with the cooking in the middle of the night once or twice every couple weeks.
All right.
I can live with that.
And the next question is...
You start making a mess every day, then it's a problem.
Perfect. And the next question is, what major turn-off could you live with if you love or liked the person?
Oh, man, that's a hard one. At this moment, I don't really love anybody, to be honest. I don't really know.
So let's just say...
I really can't answer that. I love my children. Every mistake they make, I can live with. Other than that, I really can't answer that at the moment. I mean, I give people the chance. I mean, I assume everybody has their things. I'm not perfect. I just don't mess up every day. So, like, as long as people, I expect people to be human and to learn from their mistakes and experience and whatnot, but I don't expect them to really mess up every day.
So basically, as long as there's change or growth, or the will to change, you're okay with that?
Yes, and I think people have to change. You cannot stay the same person for that long. There's no way. There's just no way.
Yeah, it's sort of inevitable. Change is inevitable. I always say that. Like, there's...
No, that's not true, though, because my ex, after 14 years, his excuses, he's still the same. So why do I hate him? I'm still the same guy I was when you met me. But that's my whole point, is that you're still the same. So, like, we're on 2 different pages. Some people want to stay the same, some people don't.
Oh, my gosh. So that's another topic and another episode. With that being said, that brings us to the tips and strategies. So this is your tips and your strategies. Here it is. Holly's tips and strategies. Holly, here is the part of the show where you give the listeners in the city of Jahf your tips about major turnoff. What are your tips?
Oh, my tips about major turnoffs. 1, voice your opinion. Don't let it get out of control, because if you don't say what you don't like right away, it will become a habit.
Okay, and to the listeners in the city of Jahf, what are your strategies for major turnoff? My
strategies, write stuff down. Before you go and you voice your opinion, all hot-headed, I would suggest writing it down first. Adult diaries or adult journals or poems, lyrics, music, however you get your feelings out, let it out first and then approach the person.
Perfect. I think that makes sense. I think a lot of people are definitely appreciative to get those tips and strategies by Holly. Now here is the part of the show where I give my tips and strategies in regard to today's topic, which is called major turnoffs. So my tips, it's simple. Approach people the way you'd like to be addressed if the roles were reversed. If that person had to come to you instead about something that you were doing that turned them off, approach them in the way that you would like to be approached. For a list of behaviors that turn people off the most, please click the link in the description of this video. you would find some very important turn-off. Some of them may even surprise you. But these are the most common behaviors that turn people off. So please, click the link in the description. My strategies. None of us are perfect. You can choose how much something about someone annoys you. So it's interesting to remember that. And also, for more information, call 289-804-7353 or email us directly at jahfreach@gmail.com. So that's jahfreach@gmail.com. We have come to the part of the show called For You and About You. So Holly, tell the listeners in the city of Jahf Reach about yourself.
Are you sure? Okay, so pretty much a lot of my advice, a lot of my opinions are based on real life. And in Hamilton over here, like, I've learned a lot about this city. I've learned the police don't care if you're innocent or not innocent. If you're in love with a criminal, you will be treated like a criminal. So remember that. And then other than that, mind your business unless you're sure about, like, sticking your nose in someone else's business. You have to be ready to approach someone with, like, positive feedback, or if it's advice, I would say just start off positive and then lay on the advice, because nothing goes down if you're rude to somebody. Well,
and
that's all.
That's all. And
that's all for now, because I have nothing nice to say. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Hamilton sucks, but that's all I'm gonna say right now.
So, for the listeners in the city of Jahf Reach, and on behalf of the city of Jahf Reach, on behalf of the show called Open Minded, Not Blinded, I want to thank Holly so much for joining us today. We definitely appreciate her wonderful feedback, comments, views, reviews, and opinions. We got some wonderful feedback and comments. We are deeply moved by these, and they help encourage us to keep doing this for you and about you. Thank you so much. If you have any comments, feedback, or something to add in regard to this topic today, major turnoff, please send us an email at jahfreach@gmail.com. On behalf of the Jahf Reach Show, we want to thank you so much for being a loyal listener and part of the city of Jahf Reach. We appreciate you. Please remember to find us at Jahf Reach. That's on Google, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes, Facebook, WhatsApp, and all that. Comment, share, like, and don't forget to hit that notification bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, most importantly, do not keep the message to yourself. Please share it with someone else. Until the next one, it's Jahf Reach, not Jahf Come. Salute Kaba.
And I can't sweep you off of your feet. Will your mouth still remember the taste of my love? Will your eyes still smile from your cheek?
Hello?
Darling,